Welcome to the Blueprint Tour, where we visit industry experts from all corners of the construction industry to overcome trust hurdles and build community. I'm Kenny Schultz, and this Season 3 episode was recorded live at the 2024 CREI Summit in Atlanta. If you're interested in using digital tools like social media, podcasting, email, and AI to drive your business development and real estate, you don't want to miss the 2025 CREI Summit happening in the beautiful Palm Desert, California. Now, let's get into today's conversation.
Let's get a few bing, bong, boom. All right. Season 3, Episode 5. We're here with Yonah Weiss, a LinkedIn expert.
Thanks so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. I love doing in-person interviews. I'm the host of the Weiss Advice podcast, so a little bit different, but most of it is remote, so I'm not doing the in-person interviews, so this is always a refreshing change. But yeah, my name's Yonah Weiss. I am actually a cost segregation expert, which means I help real estate investors pay less income tax through this very specific, weird kind of name, but very cool tax strategy.
Yeah.
And that's my main profession. I'm an investor as well. And like I mentioned, host of this podcast, among other things, among being a father of 6. And
oh, wow. Yeah, just simple stuff. Podcasts, investor.
A lot of stuff going on.
Cost segregation, nerd. I always call it when we were talking consulting. As an engineer, I do mechanical, electrical. When a problem comes up, I stop myself sometimes and be like, can I just let the nerds talk to the nerds? Like, give me the HVAC contractor and let me speak nerd directly to them. Sometimes you just got to do that. I'm sure cost seg, maybe you end up in that situation when you're trying to consult, but sometimes there's that counterparty.
You know, I do my best, and my background is actually in teaching. I was a teacher for about 15 years.
Yeah,
so I've done my best in trying to simplify this extremely complex topic as much as possible. And I've been a guest on over 500 podcasts to basically explain it, because it's really education. It's a very weird, very out there kind of almost shrouded in clouds of confusion. What's this tax stuff? And really, to be honest, and you guys tell me if you feel the same way, anytime you hear anything about tax, you're like, brain shuts off, right? It's like, I have an accountant, like, I don't need to talk. But the truth is, it's so powerful when you understand it. And so I've spent the last 7 years just educating people about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the name of the game is we call it knowledge-based marketing, essentially, and educating people, let them know that it's even an option is half of it. As engineers, the same thing. We do these videos, we call them Sight Unseen, SITE, where we just walk around with the Rode mics and just talk about for a minute some nerdy engineering thing, just to share, just like educating, like, this is what this giant green square on the ground is. It's a transformer, you know.
3-phase power.
Yeah, and people have been appreciating it, I guess, because it's smaller form stuff. But then this long form is a great way to just dive into, we call them riffs with people, and just dive into what you do, because we're in the same industry, basically, like at a larger perspective. Cost segregation, let me just guess, because I kind of maybe know, is it taking different kind of depreciation schedules and putting them together so you can amortize like a 7-year depreciation versus a 20 or something like that?
On a very large scale, yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Okay, so let's tell us a little bit more about, like, what is that? To give us some education.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, depreciation, anytime you buy a property, whether it's commercial, residential, as long as it's not your primary residence, you're able to literally take a tax write-off of the whole property, and it's called depreciation, but it's done over a long period of time. So you're taking essentially a little bit every single year, and it doesn't mean, depreciation doesn't mean that it's actually going down in value. It's just the name, to borrow a term, it's the name of a tax deduction that says, as if your property is going down in value every year, we're going to give you this write-off. And it resets every time the property changes hands. So it's completely subjective to the property owner based on their purchase price. So that's what depreciation is, and it's probably one of the most powerful tax tools when it comes to real estate. What cost seg is an accelerated form of depreciation, or a more comprehensive form, where, like you said, there are different components, and it actually used to be called component depreciation, which makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
There are different things in the property, like the flooring, and the window treatments, and the furniture, and the fixtures, and all that actually depreciates on a much faster scale, like on a 5-year schedule, or 7 or 15 some things, instead of the longer depreciation, which is on a 39-year, or for residential properties, a 27.5-year schedule. So instead of taking a little deduction every single year for 39 years, and it's going to make a difference, but not a huge difference, you can do what's called a cost segregation study, which is actually an engineering breakdown from a construction engineering of the property, saying every little tiny detail, where does that fit in? What's the value of that specific thing? And how can I take a tax deduction of that? Which essentially what happens is you're able to take something like 20 or 30% of the value of the property as a tax deduction in the first year or the first few years.
That's great. Yeah. So time value of money. Yeah. You get that money today.
Exactly.
Yep. And instead of taking that in year 30 and, essentially that's crazy. So another thing that comes up in the SMB Twitter world is this EBITDA thing. And I think that's important for people to understand. I think it's basically before this amortization or the depreciation, and it tells the business, because it's like a phantom tax. It's on your profit and loss. You'll show this as losses potentially, but you're not really spending the money until you do the actual CapEx, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it can be done with whether or not there is CapEx as well. It can be done just on an acquisition. You buy a property for $10 million. Now, instead of taking a $300,000 deduction every single year for 30 years, you're able to take, upfront, $2-3 million. And so that's where, and again, that's a write-off, and that's just on the acquisition, regardless of whether or not CapEx is done.
So what are the major components that you segregate things into?
So there are two main categories besides for the structure, right? So the structure is going to be on that longer 39 or 27.5-year schedule. And so that will include the roof, the walls, the doors, windows, foundation. That's the main thing. The two other main categories are what's called personal property, which is on a 5-year schedule, or land improvements, which is on a 15-year schedule. Now, important to note, land itself doesn't depreciate, which means anytime you buy a property, you have to subtract a certain amount for land value, and then what you're left with is your depreciable value. But land improvements, what's on top of the land, like concrete, pavement, asphalt, whether you have a parking lot, you have landscaping, you have fencing, a playground, wall, retaining walls, anything like that that's outside, that's on top of the land, is considered land improvements, depreciates on a 15-year schedule.
And why is that? Is it just expected to need to be replaced in half the time, roughly?
That's the concept of depreciation, is that certain things have a shorter useful life. And so therefore you need to replace them in a faster period of time. It's subjective a lot of times, and it's kind of just set in stone of what the IRS deemed these certain things to be, whether or not that's true. Right? You can buy a building right now and the roof, was just replaced, right? Brand new roof. And you can, for whatever reason, in 5 years need to replace that roof again. Well, the IRS says it depreciates on a 39-year schedule. So you're not really benefiting from that value. But the other category, which is, personal property, which includes things like on a 5-year schedule, which furniture or fixtures or carpeting, the concept is that these things need to be replaced, in a relatively shorter period of time.
5 years. So yeah, this quicker you can depreciate, the better. What about at a loss? Can you depreciate when it's a loss, or do you have to have it be net profit to do it?
No, it can be depreciated at a loss. It itself is a deduction. It itself will create a loss. And if you have income from other sources, or you have gains from other passive gains from real estate, etc., you can use the deductions or those losses from one property to offset the income or the gains from another property. So it really does spill over. It's not dependent on whether this property itself is profitable.
So what's the most common entity that owns real estate? Is it LLCs, or what? You tell me about that. What's the structure? What's the most ideal structure, if that's a thing?
I don't know if there is an ideal structure. I'd say probably the most common is an LLC, right? People will put it on. People own properties in their individual names. People own in corps. It's usually not recommended by most accountants, at least, to put a property in a C corp or an S corp. It's done sometimes for specific reasons, and then there are other types of trusts or corporations that can own a property. But I would say for sure the most common would be an LLC. And the funny thing is, that's not for tax purposes per se, because an LLC is just a pass-through entity for tax rate. It's really for legal, for liability, exactly, limited liability. You want to protect yourself. You don't want, if, God forbid, something happens on this property, and it happens all the time, like someone slips and, decides to sue you as the property owner.
Yeah.
They can't touch, the other properties that you own if it's in a different LLC.
That's interesting. So I've learned recently about solo 401ks. I know there's a self-directed IRA, and so you can own real estate in these tax beneficial retirement accounts. I wonder with the corporate veil looks like there. I mean, are you is it just your retirement account that may be sued? Do you know? And this is not legal advice.
I've never gone down that path in terms of what that would happen. But if you are investing in from one of your self-directed retirement accounts into real estate, typically speaking, you'll either put that itself in an LLC.
Oh, okay.
In order to do that,
I see.
or it will just go directly into whatever real estate entity owns the property.
That's true. I mean, because you could just create a note, I guess, if you want to get returns that way, and just have it still just be cash for an LLC that's outside of it, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just going to be under your name because it's coming from your account, which is your money.
Yeah. How did you get involved? Did you you're a kid and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do cost segregation.
Yes.
All the friends were doing basketball, and I'm here being like, I'm going to be an engineer. No, I'm just kidding. How did you get into this, and what brought you to it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really wish that would have been the case, right? No, as I mentioned, I was a teacher for about 15 years, and that's really been a lot of my life has been that. And obviously, a father of 6 kids, you're a teacher all the time, every day.
Oh, yeah.
But about, I'd say 9, close to 10 years ago, I, just really didn't have a lot of money and was barely scraping by with teaching, and had debt also, had student debt and all kind of credit card, all kind of stuff. Didn't really have a big financial background in terms of that, and decided I really needed to do something else, whether it was in addition to the teaching or it was in place of it. And so I just reached out to a bunch of friends and acquaintances. It was like, hey, I'm looking for a new opportunity. Like, what do you guys suggest? And real estate kept coming up in conversation. And I was like, okay, why not? And then I actually ran into a friend of mine one day. He was like, told him, yeah, I'm kind of looking for a new opportunity. He's like, why don't you come work with me?
Cool.
I'm like, okay, what do you do? I had no idea what he did. It turns out he was a commercial mortgage broker at the time. He was working for a big company, ended up going off on his own.
Yeah.
And I literally just sat in his office with him, just me and him, 4 or 5 days a week. And he just taught me everything he knew about. He also owned a few small multifamily properties, managing them and all that kind of stuff. And so I literally just learned everything I knew about commercial real estate from him, and learned about cold calling and about underwriting and about all kinds of stuff. And it was fun. And that's how I got involved in real estate in general. Did that for a couple of years, got my broker's license also, did some small properties, did a few fix and flips. And then I decided that was not for me. And another opportunity came up to work for this company, Madison Specs, is the biggest national cost segregation company. I didn't know anything about cost seg at the time. And so I was like, okay, why not? It's real estate, it's commercial real estate. It's a great company, had a great name. I knew people there, and it was the right time. And so I did not grow up thinking I want to do cost seg. But the funny thing was, really the light bulb moment for me was, since I'd been involved in real estate for a couple of years prior to that, as soon as I got the opportunity, I reached out to everyone that I knew. It was like, hey, what do you guys know about cost segregation? And overwhelmingly, the response, and I mean 90% plus of all the people I knew in real estate, responded, what's that? Mm-hmm. They had no idea.
Wow.
And so that was a light bulb. I was like, wait a second. So then, okay, why don't you know about it? And there were people in real estate. They were owners or brokers or whatever, lenders. And then one of my mentors, who was a guy who had been in commercial real estate for 30 years, very successful developer of high-class, A-class industrial logistic properties, huge player in the space. And I knew him. We were friendly for many years. And I reached out. I was like, hey, you know about this thing, cost seg? He's like, oh, yeah, I use Madison for all my cost segs.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I asked him, I said, why is it then that everyone else that I talk to has no idea what this is? And he's like, it's a no-brainer. Those were his words to me. It was like, it's a no-brainer. If you know what it is, it's a no-brainer. Mm. And that was the light bulb to me. I'm a teacher. Nobody knows about this. I'm just going to teach the masses. And that's basically what I've been doing.
So when did you get involved with the LinkedIn marketing side of things, and how long did it take to build the audience? How big is the audience?
I'm around 30,000 followers, but it's very engaged.
Sweet.
It's very engaged following. And that shortly after I got involved with the cost seg company, I was doing business development. Mm. And accidentally, I stumbled upon LinkedIn. I had an account for 10 years because, that's what everyone asks.
Yeah. You gotta have it. You kind of have to.
In college, and you log in, and it's will you endorse, Johnny for
Communication skills.
I know exactly what you're talking about. He said it. He said communication. That's good.
And
It's the magic.
yes, and then, but I logged into LinkedIn by accident because I was trying to verify information, and the funny thing was, I noticed was LinkedIn kept coming up as top Google searches when I searched someone's name. Okay,
Yeah.
and so if you're listening to this right now, I want you to pull over to the side of the road first, okay, and then if you're watching this, stop, hit pause, not after I say this, and Google your name. Okay? Google your own name, and I want you to see if you have a LinkedIn account and you don't have an extremely common name, then guaranteed LinkedIn will be, if not the first, within the first 3 or 4 results on Google, which is crazy to me. So I stumbled upon it accidentally because I was like Googling someone's name. I was like, okay, the head of acquisitions or whatever, or CFO at such and such company. I want to make sure this is the same person. Mm-hmm. So you go to, and LinkedIn comes up, you click it, like, okay, they're in this location, matches up the area code, right? Company, same name, same guy, good deal. And then once I was on there, I started seeing, and this was around 6-7 years ago when Microsoft acquired LinkedIn, and it changed over from being this place where you post your resume to a social networking platform where people were posting original content. And that was really kind of the beginning. It had started happening maybe a year or two before that, but it was really just taking off at that point. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah, that's how Twitter has been for us. But we just got involved with Twitter in April, and we're like, oh, what? There's a whole retweet. It took me like forever to figure out what that even meant.
Yeah.
And now they had to go and make it like CREI, I think it's the new thing. And but LinkedIn, we've never used it, right? Ever. Like we just completely didn't. All of the rules that you said don't break here in the thing, we just did way wrong. And we went to Twitter and found a different community, and we're like, wow, Twitter's way better than LinkedIn. But recently we're like, okay, we're just using LinkedIn the way wrong way.
Yeah.
And there's a way to do it, and there's a place for it. Twitter kind of, I don't know about what your thoughts are. Twitter to me feels more like a vibe of a community, like really just kind of a real estate Twitter community that really want to be actively out there. But LinkedIn, I don't know how to describe it. It's different. At first, I thought it was just broadcasting projects, and I didn't really like it because all of the people that we were friends with are just saying, here's something I did. I'm like, cool, what do I do here?
Yeah.
But recently I've been engaging with more like influencer type people who are actively involved with conversations and tagging and just continuing the conversation, I suppose, which is a little bit of what you guys talked about, right?
Exactly. And I think it's very similar to Twitter in that way. And I actually came the opposite because I was, doing LinkedIn for years. And then someone mentioned about retweet a couple of years ago. And I was like, okay, I avoid Twitter like the plague.
Yeah, that's what most people say if they're not on Twitter, yeah.
And then you use it and then you realize there's something called lists. And you can, really utilize Twitter and just kind of focus on this like kind of niche world, like you said, a community and a conversation. That's amazing. But that's what I found and have built on LinkedIn as well. And if you kind of curate your content to unfollow people that you don't want to see anything they're doing, and engage with the right people that you do want to see their content, you want them to see yours, etc., make the right connections, there's a way to, in the same way, to create communities, have conversations, build those connections, and build business, which is really why people are on LinkedIn, because it is a business networking platform. And I feel like it's like a networking event 24/7, right? Or 24/6, I say, because I keep the Sabbath.
And yeah, there you go. Respect the Sabbath. Where's there? Got to be applause. There's, you mentioned a significant amount of your revenue come from that, right? And during the chat. So like these leads come inbound from LinkedIn. Did people just say, yeah, I found you on LinkedIn?
It's inbound, but it's more relationship based because it's a combination of putting yourself out there and establishing your brand so that people know who you are, what you do, how you can help them, and simultaneously creating those relationships and connections with real people. Mm-hmm. And then one thing leads to another. Really, it's a snowball effect, and especially if you have a good name and you have a good product, etc. It will just one thing will lead to the next.
Do you, back to cost seg real quick, I meant to ask this earlier before we riffed on some LinkedIn. What does mechanical equipment count as?
Mechanical equipment usually is in a 5-year.
Okay.
Which means it's going to be on that, shorter depreciation schedule.
Okay. Interesting little consulting. If we understood that and people are making decisions about value engineering and like, well, are you sure you want that 15-year depreciating thing or the 20-year when you could get spend the money on the HVAC and get that, put the 30 extra thousand into the HVAC and you depreciate that over 5 years?
5 years.
5 years instead. And it's expensive to do HVAC wrong. It's, once you do it wrong, it's screwed up. You can sort of add little mini splits and all this other stuff, but where there's humidity, if you don't do it right, you're going to just destroy the building envelope. It's just going to just completely rot your building from the inside out. So this is an interesting little play here, especially for buy and hold people.
It's also, there are a couple other strategies. There's something called the 179 deduction, which is similar to depreciation, but it allows for certain equipment and things to be taken as a write-off straight away.
Wow.
As opposed
including HVAC?
Including HVAC for commercial properties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what we do is, we do engineering on small projects only, but all commercial, with 99% commercial. Multifam, but, the industrial, the flex industrial kind of space or the strip mall guy type stuff. Strip malls, basically, and the TI, all that. Basically, all the stuff that other engineers don't want to do. We just want to do it all, and scale that. But we're here to learn from everybody and try to figure out, can we become better consultants if we knew more about what happens at the very, very beginning of the deal and teach our engineers those things. So we'll have to have people follow your content too, for sure.
Yeah, I want to go back to the LinkedIn thing because we've been trying to find the balance between posting as an individual versus posting as a company. I feel like for a lot of the folks who they're brokers or commercial agents of some type and they're really selling themselves as a brand, we kind of want to do that, but I know at least for me, when I get on LinkedIn and see a general contractor we work with, they post a lot as them, and their company is constantly top of mind for me, where it might not be the same as if Joe from that company posted. So what about firms like engineering firms or construction companies? How do they find that balance between posting as the person versus the company?
It is a fine line, but one thing is for sure is that posting from a company, LinkedIn wants you to pay for advertising. And so they are going to limit the reach of any content that you put out through your company page unless you're paying for it. And so you're not going to get a huge following. You're not going to get a big reach. And yes, people may see it, and those people who do see it will, make that connection, and that's great, but it's going to be very limited. Whereas with an individual account, you can build that personal brand, and people can make that connection between, you, who you are, what you do, and then whether it ties back to the company or not, but it's a more personal connection. Because at the end of the day, people want to do business with people, not with companies.
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, it's like when the mechanical contractor, I won't say their name, that we used to work with way back in the day when Caleb left, it was just like no longer really wanted to work with them just because it was him. And Ben, when we work with him, Metro is a great company. They're an electrician we work with, but Ben is like the one we like working with. He's just a great guy to work with. Just really approachable, deals with stress and conflict in a more helpful, productive way. And you know how things can be in construction, it just gets crazy real quick and people start, pointing fingers and all that. And so it's the people. Yeah, you're right. And we struggled with it. Like, do we do something with Permanent? Do we pretend like it's a person?
Do we just post as ourselves and then just tag the company or share the personal posts from the company? Yeah, it's been tough.
The personal brand approach is kind of where we landed. It seems to be what people expect, even just as a consumer of the content. They kind of want to see you and talk to you about what you're doing, even if you have a separate business there. Do you have your own business LinkedIn as well?
I have, our company does, and they post very rarely, and then I have for my podcast. But I found that it just didn't work, and so I stopped really utilizing it as, for content creation.
On the podcast, I'm just curious, what kind of guests do you have to talk cost seg, or is it about that?
So it's not. My podcast is exclusively interviewing successful real estate investors, essentially. I'd say 90% of the guests that I've had are actually clients of mine who I've worked with, who I know they have a personal connection, and they are successful, some of the most successful people that I know in the real estate space. There's a small percentage of people who are just, that I know and I like, and I want to have a conversation with. And one of the funny things is, because I've built this huge following and very engaged following on LinkedIn and social media, I know a ton of people, right?
Yeah.
And through all the conferences I go to and the networking, I know a ton of people. And therefore, I actually started the podcast because I just want to interview and I want to get to know better those people that I already know.
That's cool. That's the same inspiration for us. It's like, man, let's just have cool conversations with people.
Exactly.
And dive deeper. Because, even when you get a lunch with somebody, there's only so much you can maybe try to cram into like a business lunch. Right? With the podcast, you can just like talk about. I mean, shoot, we started talking for 5 minutes about somebody's twins, on the last one. You just kind of get to know somebody in a way that's hard to do in any other environment than headphones. Do you do the headphones on or off?
I do headphones on.
I like headphones on. Yeah, I do. You transport to podcast land.
Yeah.
I have a green screen also in my office, so
okay.
it looks a little more real.
Yeah. So you do virtual? Do you use like Riverside or something? Like
I've used Zoom just to upload the video. I find it to be pretty good. The quality is not like as professional as you can get, but I haven't really found an issue with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you are you an audio nerd and try to get your guests to use like a mic?
I suggest it to them, like when they sign up for it. Like I suggest that they do that. I'm not an audio nerd in terms of that. I'm not too particular. Some people just can't. And unfortunately, I've had a couple interviews where just the sound quality
it's just like
was not.
Makes a big difference.
You hear they're in an echoey room and using like their MacBook mic or something, and it's just
exactly.
too much.
I try. There are a couple settings on Zoom that can help to do that. So I always make sure like someone clicks those or checks those boxes or whatever, just to make sure at the beginning. But it is what it is. You can't. I always make sure to record 2 separate files at least, so that
we learned that one hard.
Yeah,
the stream here and these and the
stream was muted for the first 20 minutes today. So.
Our very first episode, by the way. Oh yeah, that we ever recorded. We had the damn thing on mute. It was like really good conversation. I was like, damn it. So we've learned a few hard lessons.
I don't know if it's better, but it's the same as like forgetting to record, which I did also.
We've done that with Ken Ashley right at the very beginning. Luckily, we have a recording here as well.
Just made me double check that we're recording.
Oh, that's recording for sure.
I'm good over here.
But this is great because we can capture it, and like I said, we're gonna do post production. So he had this great intro. He's cracking up, and we loved it. And I was like, I'm just missed
same
it.
over here.
So I gotta go grab the audio off the live stream and then patch it in for the episode. But yeah, this is great, man. I really appreciate you sitting down and riffing. I had listening to you. I heard you had a podcast, and I appreciate you being willing to come in and talk to some engineers.
It's fun. You guys make it fun.
Well, we'll see you. I guess around you'll be here. So we'll catch up.
Cool.
Grab some.
I'm gonna try the QR code on LinkedIn for the first time.
Oh yeah, we could do a QR code thing. All right, don't forget Yonah Weiss on LinkedIn and at Yonah Weiss on Twitter. Check him out. Really appreciate learning cost seg as an engineer. Thanks for coming, man.
All right, thanks.